Hi guys, in this video I wanted to take the time and talk about the OnePlus 2 release. I will give you my pros, my cons and what I think is in between, because I watched the launch today. It was 4 AM where I am. I specifically woke up for that and I have to say I am a little bit disappointed. But I will also do a second video later for the Motorola release as well, give you all my thoughts. But for right now it is all about the OnePlus 2. But just about the phone, not the company, nor the invites, nor anything. So let's just get into that. If you maybe didn't have the time to follow it and maybe want to know my opinion on it, and yes, it will be very subjective in some certain specific departments, but yeah, that's how I roll. So I had made a few bullet points just so I don't forget anything. Let's start with the pros. The first one, solid build and nice design. If you maybe saw already all the hands-on videos and so on, you can tell the design is definitely nice. I also checked the specs. It is, I think, about 1 millimeter more narrow and shorter, therefore a millimeter thicker than the OnePlus One. This means in terms of size there's not a big change, but it feels heavier and should be a bit more premium. So I definitely think they didn't do any skimping out on that part, because the first one did already feel quite nice, and from all the hands-ons I saw, it should have been even better. So I wouldn't bother about that. Second thing, great value, the great price. That was always something that OnePlus had on its side, but yeah, I will talk about it later in the Motorola video, because the value actually isn't even that amazing anymore once you look at the Moto X style. But let's not get about it. That for what you get in terms of specs on paper, the OnePlus 2 offers quite a nice value, but maybe we will see more about it later. But for right now, definitely that's a pro. The next point would be fingerprint scanner, direct power on and unlock is cool. So what you can do with that, you can just tap on the home button and it will directly unlock. You don't have to press anything and you don't have to do a double press and a hold. So this, I think, works quite nice. On videos that I saw, it looked really good and kind of cool, because you don't have to do a double, or if you just take it out of your pocket, you just hold it and it should be open. So I think that is something nice if it really works out that well as we saw in the hands-on videos. Next thing, powerful hardware. Also not really any better than last year's though, because this is still what I think, because I use right now still the M9, which I review with Snapdragon 810. With a 1080p display, and I have to say the performance isn't really any better than on my Snapdragon 801 in my Sony Xperia Z3. It is a little bit smoother, but therefore it doesn't feel as lightweight, but therefore also a little bit more lag free. So the power is there, it is smooth and it is powerful enough in my opinion. I wouldn't bother about the performance, but if you have a flagship from last year or early this year, I don't see any reason to upgrade, because performance is right now top of the line. But in terms of last year, they didn't really make any big improvements. The next point would be 4 GB of RAM, definitely a bonus, because multitasking now should be better than ever before. Even if you have maybe a slight little bit of an issue with Lollipop memory leaks, with 4 GB you shouldn't have really any trouble. Once again, the next point, solid camera. From what we see from all the first hands-on videos, the camera should be very solid, very good. We have optical image stabilization and all that. I wouldn't bother. Of course, we yet have to see a lot more videos. Marquez did already a camera review. He didn't seem overly impressed, but also not disappointed. So this is definitely a pro. The next pro would be improved display. Resolution is fine. We'll see. We have a 5.5 inch 1080p display. It is not the same as on last year, because God forbid that one was, if proper, it was a great display, but we had a lot of yellow tint issues, also calibration issues and so on. But if they manage to fix it, and if it's really one of the brightest displays, which I actually don't care, because the old one I used at about 30% brightness all the time, it was super bright and it was a nice display. So if they slightly improved on that, I'm fine with 1080p, because less battery drain, less heat, but therefore better life. So I'm happy with that. The next point would be swappable covers. Right now we have 3 woods. We have Kevlar, which is I think pretty much the same as on the Oppo Find 7, and that Kevlar felt very, very nice. So this is definitely a nice one. And then we also have bamboo. No, bamboo would be for the woods. What was there? We have sandstone, and we have one more. I just can't remember it right now out of my head. But I like the woods. I like the Kevlar a lot, but I hope still for leather to come soon, maybe in the future or something like denim or so industrial. But that is definitely a nice thing. But I also hope it is not made a really flimsy cover, because we have yet to see, because those that I showed on the hands-on, of course, they had great quality. They were sitting on perfect. But if this thing turns out to be really good in mass production, we will see. Usually it's not a hard thing to do, but still it is a moving part. You have to do that right after all. Next point would be profile switch button. So on the left side we have the profile switch button for silent, for vibrate, and for all notifications. This is quite a handy thing. I don't think it's really something you have to have, but it's definitely a nice bonus and nothing I would complain. Definitely still on the pro side, because sometimes it can be handy for sure. Then, great button layout for power and volume. This is something I particularly personally like, because I'm always someone who said I want the power button somewhere across in the middle of the height of the device, and above that the power buttons. And this is what we think, what I see on the video, on the picture. Of course I have to hold it in my hand to see, but at least the layout with the volume buttons above seems to be the right way, something I want to see, because so many phones do it the other way around. I don't think that's the better solution. So this is definitely a pro for me. And the last pro I have here on my list would be Oxygen OS, if stable and fast. Because if they do it right, it should be, we get for 5.1.1, it should be still better than stock. Because personally I like stock as a base, but I'm not a big fan of stock itself, because I still think stock is too limited. At least with Oxygen we get things like customizable quick settings, we get a few gestures, we get the customization for the buttons. So nothing really fancy, nothing really spectacular, but at least it is more than we get on stock. But also some things like customizable quick settings we will get on Android M as well. So it's still a quite bare bone ROM. It could improve over time, but there's also the thing I think will be quite good. Maybe that's also a pro, would be the custom ROM support, because if we get that, things will be better anyways, and I would end up using one anyways if they are available. So the next thing before I get to the cons is the things in between that could be either good or bad, or just aren't really standing out a lot. That first one would be bottom firing speaker. It is not the best position. I would say it is about the second best position. If loud enough and comparable to the Galaxy S6, I have no problem with it. Give me that, all fine. But if not, it should be, I'm pretty sure it will be okay. It won't be the best, but it shouldn't be disappointing either. Battery life, just okay. From what we saw in Marquez videos, he got about 4.5 hours compared to the OnePlus that got 6 hours. And 6 hours is what I saw on mine as well. So if we get 4.5, it is definitely a lot less. But I set it up in the middle because it is good enough, but it is still not outstanding. But it's definitely no con. Not bad. It is okay. It is okay. But yeah, that was his value. What we will eventually see up getting in real life is maybe something different. Another thing would be the front buttons. We have the button with the power button for the, and I think actually the fingerprint sensor on the front is the right solution, because if you have it on your table, that still is the most convenient way, and you don't have to lift up the device just to get that. So I'm okay with the position, but then we have these two buttons. You could disable them and use on-screen buttons, but I think that's not the point, because if you don't use those buttons, you would like to save space. So this is something where I'm not quite sure. A lot of people don't want the power button at all. The home button, and you can disable them, but it is there. And since I use all my buttons or the bottom of my screens for gestures, I'm not so sure if that would be kind of in the way or not. So I'm not so sure about that. Next thing in the middle would be USB-C. Yes, it will be the standard of the future, but for right now, we don't have any benefits for right now. Also, maybe quick charging because of that isn't yet supported, even though USB-C can do it in theory, but this is something, it's good, but definitely not amazing. In the middle, the last thing also would be dual SIM. In Western countries like maybe the US, Germany and so on, it doesn't really matter a lot, but in countries like India, China, dual SIM is a very important thing. So this depends on the region where you are, if it's important for you or not. So let's get to the cons. No NFC. Definitely a big bummer. Even though I don't personally use it a lot, it is still bad that they haven't integrated it. It's not a big thing. They definitely should have done it. I am disappointed not to see that after all. No SD card. Personally, I don't care because we have a 64 gigabyte version. The 16 gigabyte version, I wouldn't recommend to buy anyone if he really thinks he's okay with 16 gigabytes. But for games and so on, I don't think so. So 64 is good enough for me. I don't care about SD card, but I get why a lot of people are disappointed about that. Next thing, no wireless charging. Okay, once again, personally, I don't care. I never use it. I don't think I will ever use it because I want to charge with a cable that is just faster. If wireless charging would be as fast as with a cable, okay, but if not, I don't really care about it. But then the bigger thing, maybe no quick charge. And this is something a few people still are a bit on the fence. Same as for the wireless charging. They think it could be possible if you change the back, and quick charge could be possible if you have the right power chargers. So these are two things, and maybe even the NFC, because people saw NFC it could be enabled with the back. So these are all things that maybe could change in the future, but for right now they aren't available and we shouldn't expect them to be. Yeah. Next con would be it is very tall, big bottom and top bezels. This is not a real huge flaw, but I definitely think they could have narrowed it a little bit down because it is still quite tall. Not a huge con, but still. And then we have high but not critical times. Since we are using the Snapdragon 810, the device definitely will get, even though it is lower clocked, I don't worry about it. Performance on the S810 is top notch, and it will get slightly warmer. If that's on the long term good for the battery, if that's good for the performance, is something we will have to see. But I wouldn't care about that too much, bother about it. But if it's awkwardly warm in the hand, this is something we'll definitely have to see. So one more thing I wanted to say before I get to my final words is I am very, very disappointed in what the media showed us on YouTube. And this is something where I'm not sure. Is it because of OnePlus? Didn't they allow them to tell them more than they did? Or didn't they want to tell us more? Because what I thought as I saw hands-on after hands-on, it was for me like a 4 or 5 minute advertisement about the phone. Everyone told the same, everyone said the same specifications, the same pros, didn't really talk about anything specific that could be negative, besides the obvious things like the lack of an SD card and so on. But for me, just didn't feel right. If OnePlus told them, don't talk about that, I accept it. I don't like it, but I accept it. But if the media didn't want to tell us more, then I'm actually more disappointed, because Marquez had it for more than 1 or 2 weeks, so he could have made a review already. He didn't. And I think there is a good reason because he didn't. Maybe because he wouldn't give it the review everyone would like to see yet. And it wouldn't be that positive, and they needed all the positive hype. So either way, I'm not happy what I saw. Of course, I get it because it happens all the times. I don't like embargoes at all. But hands-on embargoes are the worst, because we don't hear anything and then we hear all about, even though all the people already used it for enough time to get me a good first impression, because I saw them using it for 1 or 2 hours already, sometimes even longer. And if I would have the chance to just play 5 or 10 minutes with one of these devices, I could already tell you a lot of stuff that is worth mentioning they didn't think was worth. So I will get to my final words and I'll just read it off to make it quick so the video won't get any longer. My final words: it is no flagship killer for 2016, not even 2015. Actually, it is hardly a flagship for mid-2015. It's great mostly because of the value, but apart from that, nothing is any special. No one would buy it for double the price. In some departments, it already feels almost slightly outdated. For me, definitely far from impressive. Once again, marketing and price will make it sell good enough, but for a hardcore enthusiast, it feels half-baked, at least for me. I myself am gonna wait for the real flagships later this year and pay more if I have to. If I wouldn't have any higher end phone, like for example right now the Sony Xperia Z3 myself though yet, I think I would probably go for it if I wanted something really good for a reasonable price. And for the last sentence I have to mention though, I wrote that before I saw the Moto X style, which I will talk about in my Motorola video, because in terms of price, OnePlus doesn't look that good anymore, because Motorola really pulled something off here. Not in all departments, but I will talk about it later. So this is it for right now. Leave me your comments. Leave me what you think. Please don't talk about the invites. Don't talk about the company itself, because this is more just about the device. We should really focus on the company, something different, and maybe worth a discussion, but not right now, not right here. Okay, let me know your comments or your impressions. Until next time, bye.